Peace Ambassador Kambura Milton. Today we are seeing Kenya making a decision after 10 years. What is your take?
Basically, Kenya is such an important country in Africa, very strategic indeed. And Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, many countries that are landlocked actually take Kenya as a strategic location for their imports. And so Kenya's strategic position makes us to pray so hard that it actually organizes and facilitates a safe, peaceful, and a transparent election. Everyone, of course, knows the history of Kenya from pre-colonial, then colonial, and post-colonial independence. It's such a country that fought blood and achieved where it is today. Everyone knows that the people of Kenya fought in the post-election violence, and it lost more than 1,000 people during that time of 2007, but also in 2013 the same happened. The birth of the new constitution out of the damage elections had caused onto the country really is regrettable. But I thank Global Peace Foundation at that time that it pursued peaceful activities involving the leaders, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, Mwai Kibaki, and the young people and the peace ambassadors that were deployed in every village of Kenya to make sure peace is achieved, but also coexistence and a new constitution is developed. Within the context of your question, sir, one, I first thank you for coming from Kenya to come and get my position. One, I want to let you know that Global Peace Foundation has again deployed peace ambassadors in every village of Kenya to preach peace during and after elections. Last month we awarded His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta with an award, a life distinguished of honor, a leadership award for his competence in terms of building and preparing Kenya for the 10 years. One, with a new competency-based education, which has been rolled out in all schools, but two, to accept not to interfere with the democratic values that are enshrined in the Constitution of Kenya. And lastly, to accept to hand over power peacefully after 10 years of leadership. That is something to learn from, especially countries in Africa, many countries. We got to learn a lot from that report. On now the current elections are tomorrow. I thank the work of KPMG for conducting an audit report, which actually came in last week. This third-party independent report on the electoral register is showing us that Kenya in this election has 46,232 polling stations. And according to the report, a third-party evaluation report indicate that Kenya will have 22,120,458 people. These are Kenyans going to vote tomorrow. With this kind of reports, third party, KPMG, recruited to actually work and research and evaluate what's on ground as a private company with such an international reputable brand coming into elections of a nation is something that is breaking, that is actually very important to other countries also to learn from, so that there is transparency. We need a third-party report. Now, I also want to mention that in tomorrow's voting exercise, we have 4 presidential candidates. And indeed, everyone knows that since the campaigns began, unlike other African countries, we have not had people dying in Kenya, as a result of security, poor management of the whole process. I mean the police, I mean the army, but also the rebel groups. I call them terror groups. In other countries, you know what I'm talking about. Elections, actually, it's like war. And some political candidates have really even resorted to putting on body armors in case of bullets shot on their body. So for security purposes and for safety, some presidential candidates have been seen actually putting on helmets, and many have been lost during the process. Kenya is showing us that an election must never be war. Actually, an exercise that should not threaten people's lives and even abuse of their human rights and freedoms. That is something that I think is commendable to His Excellency Kenyatta for organizing such kind of system and not intervening, infiltrating the work of the Independent Electoral Commission. That is something the Electoral Commission has to be independent and financed even with enough resources prior to the activities. I also commend actually the presidential candidates, especially for maintaining law and order, for maintaining peace in their speeches, that indeed we are in an election, but then we should not have too much hate speech. The hate speech, false propaganda, and specifically David Waihaga Mwaire, that is the leader of Agano Party, Raila Odinga, of course, he's the former Prime Minister of Kenya, but he's coming under the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya alliance. We have, of course, the former Vice President, William Ruto, who's the current Deputy President of Kenya, of course, and he is coming under the United Democratic Alliance. These 4 important leaders have demonstrated indeed maturity. They have demonstrated moral and innovative leadership, which I think tomorrow, the way it looks, Kenya is going to exercise and is going to demonstrate peaceful, safe and transparent elections. The chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission, I believe with his experience of the last electoral process, Kenya has trusted him with authority, and I have not heard of anyone doubting his credibility, his competence, and everyone, I think, is ready, and particularly his move to say that the counting of votes and the announcing the president of the winner will be during daytime. That is commendable. Why would elections and counting of votes and announcing of presidential candidates be at night? Africa, this is the time to wake up and do the right thing. That is something Kenya is going to demonstrate tomorrow. And indeed, he has also put up technology to be part of the electoral process of making sure people are able to even vote wherever they are across the world. In Uganda, it had not yet come into force, but I think it's something that can be done in the 2026 presidential elections, where Ugandans must vote even when they are abroad. And using phones, it reduces on the occurrence of stealing votes, but also it reduces on the burden and the cost of electoral process. I think it's something, and we really, as Global Peace Foundation, the organization that I lead in Uganda, of course, my counterpart, Honorable Daniel Omondi Juma from Kenya, is also working. We are working together to making sure Kenya really organizes a historic election that has not shed blood, that has no cost to people's lives. As East Africa, particularly Kenya's experience because elections are tomorrow. We have not seen any security, the bombardment of, of APCs, AK-47s, M24 rifles, we have not seen combat caravans along the streets of Nairobi, Kisumu, along the main roads. We have not seen those caravans of combat uniform. Police is of course guarding and protecting the presidential candidates, as providing bodyguard services, but we have not seen what we see in other countries. For example, in Uganda, I think this is something to learn from. DRC's elections, everyone remembers. We have not really, this is really a beautiful thing to see in Africa. And I pray that tomorrow, during really when people are now exercising their constitutional right to vote their presidential candidates, I pray that the police remains, police and the army and the intelligence remains invisible, and to provide that peaceful environment where people can vote peacefully and go back home. It has not been too much of abuse of this freedom in Kenya, like also other countries like Uganda, where some people throw stones to the police. Sometimes in exercising our constitutional right or our human right, we have always also violated the right for police to be available and keep the place safe. For the polling station safe, to keep the country safe. So Kenyans, I think, learned from the post-election violence, and they have kept peace. And that peace, by starting with me, not throwing stones to the police, I think government also really had no reason to respond in a negative way. I think Ugandans, Kenyans have challenged us. The people of Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, South Sudan, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Ethiopia is of course coming to join the East African community. We got to learn from Kenya. This is important because as East Africa, we are now saying we are one family under God. And that means what happens to Kenya affects your own peace and economics and economy. That's what I'm talking about. So I mean that enough is enough to see an election which is defined by blood, by destruction of buildings, by shooting of civilians, by arresting opponents and jailing them with impunity, beating the youth and the women, the pregnant mothers, that's now useless. And I think we got to prepare as Uganda to making sure we rise beyond the ordinary behaviors we have shown to the world, which actually usually deter the private sector investors from even being around the country during elections. And that means when you have a peaceful transfer of power in a peaceful way, you actually are cultivating such a sustainable, dependable, and peaceful nation of the future, which can attract tourism, which can attract private sector, which can attract even young people to participate in leadership, in civic liberties, and also in innovations. I think the future is beautiful for East Africa. All we need is improved attitude towards politics that divides us. We must end the politics that divides us. Rather, the politics that looks at solutions towards our nation's problems. Otherwise, enough is enough.